More than half the people who are trekking up to Everest Base Camp look to turn back. They're sick, they're vomiting, they're exhausted, they're tired. They just want to give up. But I'll help you succeed. Listen to what I have to say and you'll understand the issues that you're facing and how you can succeed. Now, why listen to me? Well, I took my 3 and 5-year-old children up to Everest Base Camp. And my 5-year-old managed to walk all the way because I put in enough research and preparation to make sure that we would succeed. Now, I still made mistakes. And this video is about the mistakes I made, how you can avoid them, and you can succeed with your family or just yourself and get up to Everest Base Camp. To get to Everest Base Camp itself, it's a grueling 65-mile trek up into the heart of the Himalayas. It's over 17,000 feet above sea level, and to complete it, you must face these 4 big issues. Poor training, not allocating enough time, sickness, and altitude sickness. Now let's talk solutions to make your trek successful. But why listen to me? I took my 2 children, a 3 and a 5-year-old, with me. Now I'm not going to put my children's lives at risk without maximising my preparation. This involved months of research and training, and I'm going to share with you what I learnt and even the mistakes I made. Now, poor training and preparation is going to cause problems. If you're in poor health and fitness, you can fix this. If you're taking children with you, you can even train them. I trained a 5-year-old to complete this trek on his own. Subscribe to learn how to teach your kids to trek. While we were climbing up to base camp, we met so many people who were doing this trek who weren't fit and failed to reach base camp. Some people were blaming altitude sickness or another sickness. But after talking to them for a while, the real issue was lack of training and preparation. They could have got themselves fit. They just hadn't. To overcome this issue, just make sure you train and train hard. Subscribe, see a video on how to train. Now, travelling in Nepal usually doesn't go according to schedule. The first part of the trek involves a flight to Lukla. Almost half of these flights are cancelled due to poor visibility. That means your first day might not even start, and you have to wait until the next day just to get going. You can overcome this issue by having an additional day built into your schedule. This is an easy fix, but over 90% of people I spoke to didn't have an additional day in their schedule for this particular issue. So a lot of people resorted to an expensive helicopter evacuation to get them back on track. Over half the people we met experienced vomiting and other stomach upsets, and they blamed the hygiene standards of the Nepali kitchen staff for their sickness. Now, I'll let you know a secret. It's not food poisoning. Let's actually talk about altitude sickness. There's a photo of my son on the previous slide. Now, he's smiling here. It's about 10 AM in the morning, but it's been a long day up to this point in time. He's been awake since just before 3 AM, vomiting, sick. He's exhausted. Now, we've made some mistakes here, and I've left this photo here and showing it to talk about a mistake that I'm about to make. Less than 5 minutes after I've taken this photo, I give my son a cream biscuit. Just one. What does he do? He promptly vomits it back up all over me. It's my mistake. I deserved it. From here, we walk 10 yards at a time because we've trained for it and we know that we can succeed. Now, with altitude sickness starts when you get above 8,000 feet or 2,500 metres. The air is less dense than you're used to at sea level. You can minimise this issue by going up slower. I went up with my kids, so the higher we went, the less altitude we did each day. While most people would walk to the next village, have lunch, and then walk again before dinner, we would just walk to the lunch stop and stay there, because that slowed down the altitude gain that we had for the day, allowed the children to recover. It also allowed them to adjust to the new low oxygen environment. This made a huge difference for our children, and they were able to complete the trek. Except we did make a few mistakes and didn't follow some of the advice I'm going to give you at the end of this video. And if I'd known, we would have found things much, much easier. But first, here are the following signs that your body is not coping with the altitude: headache, feeling and being sick, dizziness, tiredness, loss of appetite, and shortness of breath. Let's talk about each one individually. Headache is hugely common, but mostly caused by a lack of water. This affected me badly one day, so make sure you're drinking enough water at the higher altitudes. Now we'll come back to sickness in a minute. Dizziness is a bit more uncommon and something to be really concerned with. Most people will be travelling in a group or with a guide. This is something that should be shared with your guide. Everyone gets tired faster at high altitude than you do at sea level. The lack of oxygen means that your bodies are struggling to get the oxygen out of the air, and this puts a lot of strain on your body, which means that you feel much tireder than you would normally. For high altitude climbers, we train our bodies to handle this extreme. We do crazy things like running up staircases for an hour while carrying 40-pound backpacks. That may sound crazy, but it is necessary. Shortness of breath is very common, but training prior to climbing to this altitude will decrease this issue. So I do recommend to get yourself fit and get yourself out there. Depending on severity, your guide will conduct an oxygen saturation test on you, and for your own safety, you may have to descend. Now, loss of appetite happens to a lot of people. It happened to all of us in our group, in my family. Now, if you order a steak at Gorigshep, which is right up the top near Everest Base Camp, you probably take 2 mouthfuls and you won't want any more. Why? Well, your body sees something so rich and so dense, it doesn't know how to digest it at this altitude. The feeling sick and actually being sick, as in vomiting, are related to the loss of appetite. At altitude, your body is under stress. It's lacking oxygen from the air. If you feed it meat and other rich baked foods like chocolate muffins and chocolate cakes and very rich food, you're likely to be sick. That's right, your body will reject the food, not because it's unclean, but because it can't digest it. You may think it's food poisoning and that the people who prepared the food haven't done a good job of it, but that's not it. It's that your body can't digest it. Your body can digest simple carbohydrates and proteins, like rice and bread combined with lentils, which incidentally is actually what the locals eat and what the porters are eating, which is rice and dal. So, after my experiences and my research that I've done since getting back as well, what are the 4 things that I would tell you to do to make sure that you succeed? First off is to make sure you allow an extra day into your trek, because you never know about that first flight into Lukla. Second thing, you don't have to go up as fast as most of the itineraries say. You can go a few days slower, and that is really good if you're worried about adjusting to the altitude. Third thing would have to be to train. Make sure you're going uphill. Make sure you're doing good quality training. I've got another video on how to do that. Please watch that. Subscribe so you can see that in your feed. Fourth thing I do, which is the most important thing, is to cope better with the altitude. Make sure you're eating simple vegetarian food. That rice and dal combination that the locals are eating just happens to be the best food for you to be eating at altitude. So join them and eat this simple vegetarian food. Subscribe to learn about the great adventures you can have with your family.